Okay, so this notes we're going to be working now are going to be the mitochondria side. So if you're looking at page 1 of your energy unit notes, we are down here. We're going to look at the cellular respiration equation, and then we're going to fill in this box, and then we'll actually go back in and fill the question in the middle. Okay, so first of all, plants have both chloroplasts and mitochondria. Plants use the oxygen made in photosynthesis, which occurs in which organelle again? Photosynthesis. Okay, it occurs in chloroplasts. And the oxygen is a waste gas of photosynthesis. So the plants don't need oxygen for that equation. However, their mitochondria do need oxygen. So some of that oxygen goes to their mitochondria, and then the rest of the oxygen, because plants produce over a ton of it a day, especially in the summertime in North Carolina, that the rest of it goes into the air for us to breathe. Okay, we don't have chloroplasts, but plants have both. So what happens in the mitochondria? Well, first of all, it is cellular respiration. Okay, the root word of cellular is cell. The root word of respiration is breathing. So this is cell breathing in its simplest terms. And this is how you make ATP. Well, you have your reactants, which mix together inside the mitochondria to make your products. So the O2 is oxygen. What is C6H12O6? That is not that one. This one, glucose. So glucose is C6H12O6. So glucose plus oxygen yields water is H2O. What is this? CO2. This is the carbon dioxide. And then it also makes energy or ATP. So a lot of times, again, your exams will leave the word energy off, or ATP, and we'll talk about that why in just a moment. So here's our little mighty mitochondria is doing his little muscle pump. Okay. Now, what factors affect the rate of cellular respiration? Well, if you want to slow down or speed up, which is what affect the rate means, are you going to look at the reactants or the products? What will slow cellular respiration down? Okay, it's not the presence of water, because water is a waste product. It's not the presence of carbon dioxide, because again, that's a waste product. So, it is glucose and oxygen. So, obviously, you all know that if we're stuck in a room without oxygen, eventually you're going to die because you don't have oxygen. So this is why if you're going to sleep in a car because you're traveling, you want to leave the window open an inch because you need that to let fresh air in. Otherwise, you may sleep long enough to use all the oxygen of the car that's in the car. Okay, so glucose also. Which macromolecule does glucose belong? Is it proteins or carbohydrates? It's going to be carbohydrates. Glucose is a sugar. So the amount of sugar you eat dictates how much energy you can make. If you are eating a low carbohydrate diet, then your body will be forced to use proteins and other foods to make the energy from. And that just takes a lot more effort. So here is your equation. So we're in the box now. We have finished this part, and now we're in this part here. Okay. So reactants or starting chemicals is the left. It comes before the arrow. So that's going to be the glucose and the oxygen. These are your starting chemicals or reactants. The products come after the arrow, which is water, carbon dioxide, and you can even put in the word ATP or energy because that is essentially a product as well. Okay. The gas inhaled, Am I going to look at the reactant or the product for the gas that it comes into the mitochondria? Well, that's the reactants. This is what the mitochondria needs to make energy. So the gas inhaled is oxygen. The gas exhaled is carbon dioxide. So we are opposite of plants. The chloroplast inhales carbon dioxide and exhales oxygen. We inhale oxygen and exhale carbon dioxide. So they're opposite equations. All right, this is the second data table. So that is going to be, we're going to go back to do this question in a moment. Let's look at this one right here first. So, cellular respiration. Whoops. Okay, the organelle where it occurs. What organelle does it occur in? And I'm sorry I did not set this up ahead of time. So this is not the right word. What organelle is mitochondria? What organelle is used to make energy? Mitochondria. Okay, so the mitochondria is the organelle where the process occurs. Okay, the source of the glucose. Plants and algae, they use photosynthesis, makes glucose. But for animals, what do we use? What do we have to do to get glucose? We have to eat food to get glucose. Okay, and the organelle where water is stored. Where's water stored? We just did that one. It's a vacuole. Okay, so cellular respiration occurs in the mitochondria. For animals, we have to eat food. Plants have a chloroplast to make the food. And then excess water, which is right here, is going to be stored in a vacuole. So now this question is what's in between. So now we're going to go back and do this. And this question says, what do you notice when you compare the reactants and products between cellular respiration and photosynthesis? Well, these are the reactants of cellular respiration, glucose and oxygen. Well, in the photosynthesis equation, where do you see glucose and oxygen? Are they on the reactant side? They're on the product side. Okay, so the reactants of one equation are the products of the other. So let's look at this. Where do we see water and carbon dioxide in the photosynthesis equation? And water and carbon dioxide are over here. Okay, so what do we notice? Well, we notice that, and I'm going to have to kind of move things around here. What we notice is that these equations are opposite. Okay, so the reactants of one equation are the products of the other. Okay, so they're opposites. So if you kind of leave out the ATP energy and over here, if you leave out the word light, they literally are completely opposite of each other. So that's very interesting to note. They're opposite equations. So if you're struggling with these equations, the best thing to do is to memorize one. I memorized what I do when I was sitting in your chair. I eat food. I eat glucose. Then I breathe oxygen, and my mitochondria turns these two things into water, carbon dioxide, and energy. That's what I do. And when I see a test question that's talking about cellular respiration, I go, oh, that's me. And I answer that question as to what do I do. If the question's asking about photosynthesis, then I actually literally, when I got my test for energy, I just wrote down the equation for cellular respiration as soon as I got my test, just wrote it down. And then if the question's asking for photosynthesis, I know I have to look at it backwards. So instead of looking at going glucose plus oxygen yields water, carbon dioxide, I have to reverse it. I have to start on this side and read carbon dioxide and water will give me oxygen and glucose. So it just depends on which equation you want to remember. Or you can study them in two different sets. Study the photosynthesis one time, study the cellular respiration the other. Okay, so now we need to go back up to aerobic respiration. And I'm just going to do this. So aerobic respiration. So now we're at the top of the energy notes. We're at the top of this page. We just finished down here. We're at the top, and now we've got to fill out this side. And I'm just going to type right into the document. So first thing is aerobic respiration has another name. Cellular respiration. So what I'm typing in, you're going to, getting confused as to which I've got out. I need to look at this. So whatever's in purple is what you're going to be writing down. So aerobic respiration is the same thing as cellular respiration. The equation for cellular respiration, does it need oxygen to occur? So here, is there oxygen over here? Yes, it's right there. So it needs oxygen to occur. Needs oxygen to occur. And it occurs in what organelle? Well, what organelle makes energy? Mitochondria makes energy. Now, here's a big difference. Using the mitochondria to make energy and oxygen, you can make 38 ATP molecules. So let's compare these a little bit. Over here, this is what we did earlier, and that is 2. So I'm going to use the same analogy. If your friend gives you $1 before school, and after school your friend gives you $2 back, you doubled your money. So that's pretty good. Let's come over here to aerobic respiration. Go back to your friend example. Your friend gives you $1 before school. Or actually, you give your friend $1 before school. After school, your friend gives you $38 in return. That's a darn good investment on your money. Okay, so you multiplied your money 38-fold. So when you compare it that way, which is a lot more, $2 or $38? So aerobic respiration makes a lot more energy, a lot. And the average human cell, in all of our cells except brain and muscle cells, we have approximately 400 mitochondria in every single cell. So that means at one moment in time, the mitochondria can make a minimum of 38 ATP or energy molecules. That's the minimum. Okay, so that's a lot. All right, this occurs in all eukaryotic organisms. Eukaryotic organisms. This would be protists, which are your pond critters, like the algae that makes everything green. Fungi or fungi, like mushrooms and molds. Plants and animals. So every cell on planet Earth can do this, except for prokaryotic bacteria. Now, what is the waste gas? Well, come over here. If I'm looking at waste, am I going to look at the reactants or the products? Okay, I'm looking at the products. So between water and carbon dioxide, we are looking at carbon dioxide is the waste gas. Okay? So this is cellular respiration. There are two kinds of cellular respiration. Anaerobic respiration or fermentation, we filled this out earlier, or aerobic respiration, cellular respiration. One does not use oxygen, one does. One occurs in just the cytoplasm, one occurs in the mitochondria. One makes very little energy, the other makes a lot. Okay, so now we're going to watch a little video.
Respiration? That's a posh word for breathing, isn't it?
No. It's a very common mistake, though, and the two are closely linked.
So what's the difference?
Well, the fact that respiration is basically a chemical reaction that happens in every animal and plant cell.
Okay, I'm with you so far.
Good. Now, this chemical reaction is where we get our energy from.
So how does that work, then?
Do you remember our animal cell? Well, it contains glucose, which is a very simple sugar. And we all know that when we breathe in air, oxygen gets into our cells. The oxygen and the glucose react together to produce carbon dioxide, water, and energy.
Is that it?
Yes.
So respiration is the chemical reaction of oxygen and glucose to form carbon dioxide, water, and energy.
Yes, and respiration not only happens in animal cells, but in plant cells too.
Oh, right. So plant and animal cells respire because they need to create energy for life processes.
M-R-S-N-E-R-G. It's Mrs. Nerd, so listen to me.
Exactly. So respiration provides energy for those life processes.
So respiration and breathing are different because respiration is a chemical reaction, whilst breathing is a muscular contraction. And that's why plants respire, but they don't breathe.
Spot on.
So is that lesson over then?
No, not quite. You see, that was aerobic respiration, or respiration with air.
What? You mean there's respiration without air?
Yeah. It's called anaerobic respiration, and it starts happening when you use up all the oxygen in your body.
But how can that happen? I mean, we're breathing in air all the time, aren't we?
Well, yes, but it's not always enough. Trust me, anaerobic respiration is something we've probably all experienced at some time or another. You know that feeling you get when you've just run the 3,000 metres in PE? Your legs are really aching. You're exhausted as if you're about to drop. And you're red in the face. And after you stop, you're still gasping for air for a couple of minutes afterwards.
I do know how that feels.
We all do. That's anaerobic respiration. It's where your body's working so hard that it's using up all the oxygen in the air that you're breathing in. But it still needs energy to keep going. So now it's got an oxygen debt.
So how do we keep on going?
The cell is forced to create energy from just glucose, which produces less than half the energy it did before.
So anaerobic respiration is less efficient than aerobic respiration?
Yes, without oxygen, the glucose is converted into energy and lactic acid.
Instead of carbon dioxide and water?
Yes, it's a sort of state of emergency for our body. It can get very painful.
Why?
Well, the build-up of lactic acid can cause muscular fatigue.
Like cramp?
Yes.
So how does this oxygen debt get paid back then?
Well, when the body stops working so hard and it needs less energy, it still takes in lots of air. This oxygen is used to break down the lactic acid.
So is that why we always gasp for air after hard work?
Yes, it's called our recovery time. It's the length of time needed for our body to pay back this debt.
So does that mean that the fitter you are, the shorter the recovery time?
Yes.
Okay, let's see. Come on, race ya.
Okay, so that takes care of this section of the notes, and we have one small section left for later.